Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine, if you will, a birthday present, but one so disturbing, so revealing, it actually took 2 decades for the world to even get a glimpse of it. We are talking about Jeffrey Epstein's infamous birthday book, a truly, well, grotesque tome.
And what's truly fascinating here, maybe fascinating isn't quite the right word, but revealing, perhaps, is the sheer audacity and the foresight of this collection. It was meticulously compiled by Ghislaine Maxwell for Epstein's 50th birthday back in 2003.
Right, 2003. That's important.
Exactly. That's a full 3 years before the sex allegations publicly exploded into view in 2006. And this timeline is just crucial because it was assembled when Epstein was still operating largely in the shadows, publicly at least. And it suggests a certain confidence, maybe, or perhaps arrogance from those who actually contributed to it, like they believed its contents would just remain hidden forever.
Absolutely. So our deep dive today is based on recent, pretty rigorous reporting from major news outlets. Think Sky, CNN, The Wall Street Journal. And we're focusing only on the factual content that's been revealed in these sources. That's really important for you to know. Our mission, basically, is to guide you through this, well, it's a labyrinth of disturbing revelations, isn't it?
Yeah.
Connecting the dots, helping you understand what this really means. We want to distill the most impactful nuggets of knowledge, offer you a shortcut to being exceptionally well-informed without feeling, completely overwhelmed by it all.
And to give you a sense of its meticulous construction, the book, it's structured into these distinct sections. They're classified by the sender's relationship to Epstein. So you've got a section for family, one for girlfriends, and then, interestingly, a subtly distinct category just for girlfriends.
Girlfriends, not girlfriends.
Exactly. Which, that alone hints at blurred lines of intimacy, doesn't it? And then finally, there are sections for friends and colleagues and assistants.
Mm-hmm.
This raises a pretty important question right away. Why such a detailed classification? It speaks volumes, really, about a carefully curated network, almost certainly designed to serve specific, maybe nefarious purposes. And it's a clear attempt to categorize the various relationships he cultivated.
Yeah, it's undeniably dark stuff, and a lot of it is profoundly unsettling, let's be honest. But our job here is to shine a light on the information, not shy away from it. We're approaching this analytically, thinking of it almost as a profound sociological document, trying to understand the dynamics at play here.
And just to reiterate, our commitment, especially when we're dealing with such high-profile figures and, frankly, potentially politically charged content, our focus is purely on the content of the sources. We're presenting the facts as they emerged impartially, encouraging you, the listener, to think critically about the implications. Our goal isn't to endorse any viewpoint, okay?
Yeah.
It's to help you understand the ideas and, well, the realities contained in the original material. This isn't about taking sides. It's about understanding the documented reality.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, right from the very start. The birthday book kicks off, not with some grand statement from Epstein himself, no. It starts with a handwritten prologue, scribbled onto the page by none other than Ghislaine Maxwell. His accomplice, his lover-turned-partner in crime. It's this intensely personal message from the woman who would, later face her own brutal reckoning.
Indeed, and Maxwell's words, they're just dripping with personal investment. She addresses the 50-year-old Epstein directly. She writes, and I'm quoting here, "I hope you will derive as much pleasure looking through it as I did putting it together for you." Now, this opening salvo, it's like a masterclass in what you might call reputation laundering, isn't it? Establishing this misleading narrative designed to humanize Epstein, normalize the relationship, even to those receiving the book, perhaps. It frames the entire book as this labor of love, a seemingly innocent gesture of deep affection, which is, well, a stark contrast to her later legal battles and the ultimate truth of her profound complicity.
Right. And accompanying this intimate dedication from Ghislaine is a photo, never before seen publicly, of Jeffrey and Ghislaine together, unredacted from way back in 1991. The photo captures the two of them in this moment of, well, apparent bliss. Ghislaine's arm is linked around his long before the scandal just stripped away that facade. It's like looking at a snapshot from an entirely different life, isn't it? Before the public facade crumbled and the, well, true depravity was exposed, this image, it grounds the book's sort of voyeuristic gaze on their shared history, setting a very personal, almost intimate tone right away.
Mm-hmm. And following Maxwell's intimate prologue, the early pages of Epstein's birthday book immediately dive into messages from Epstein's family. These entries, they're strategically placed right at the very start. They offer this veneer of normalcy, serving as a stark contrast to the depravity that, as we'll see, unfolds later in the same book. It's a deliberate attempt to frame Epstein within this context of familial love and respect. This early section is really crucial for understanding how carefully Epstein's image was managed, even privately.
Exactly. The book wants you to believe this is just a regular guy's birthday. Okay? Maybe a very rich and famous one, but still. It sets this foundation of perceived normalcy before the darker elements really begin to creep in. It acts as a kind of psychological shield, maybe.
I think so. In one of these early letters, Epstein's mother, Pauline Stulowski Epstein, she expresses how busy she's been reminiscing since Ghislaine asked her to contribute. She writes, "Jeff, you have been a good son since day one, and we have been proud of you ever since." She recalls him refusing to sleep as a child unless she read a story from Grandma's Golden Book, which apparently cost just 25 cents. Pauline even mentions begging his teachers at PTA meetings to improve his handwriting. That's quite a detail.
Yeah, very specific, humanizing almost.
Very. And crucially, she also references Epstein's bachelor life, noting that Cosmopolitan magazine featured you as Bachelor of the Month when he was only 21, and that he still holds that title today. Her letter also includes a bet that his father couldn't share the noise, which means pride they had regarding his achievements, especially a New York Magazine article about him. This letter, it's a crucial part of Epstein's curated narrative, presenting him as this cherished son, a prodigy even, carefully creating a foundational layer of respectability that he and Maxwell clearly wished to project.
And all these details, the loving mother, the childhood memories, the Bachelor of the Month nod, they all work together to create this deeply humanizing image of Epstein. It's a classic example, really, of how even the most notorious figures attempt to craft their public and, well, private image, making him appear as this average, famous, rich guy, seemingly loved and admired by his family, just like anyone else might be, before the high society sleaze starts to seep through later on.
And the birthday book itself, it features hundreds of photos from throughout Epstein's life up until age 50, including pictures of him as a child, as a teenager. These images, they're interwoven with the family tributes. Some are partially redacted in the release documents, to shield identities or details. They depict a sort of pre-wealth Epstein, raw and unpolished, an Epstein that existed before the Epstein we kind of know today. And several of these photos, they bear captions within the book itself, serving to add layers of, well, self-mythology to Epstein's portraits.
Self-mythology, yeah. Building the legend.
Exactly. This visual section meticulously constructs a chronological arc, visually tracking Epstein's transition from, let's say, boyish innocence to the man who would amass fortunes, secrets, and tragically thousands of victims. This structural choice is very deliberate. It's a sanitized familial embrace designed to set a false precedent, a veneer of innocence and normalcy. Before the darker elements begin to creep in, there are no obscene intrusions yet, not in this part, but the groundwork for those later revelations is certainly laid in this initial segment.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? It really highlights the incredible power of narrative control. Even the most notorious figures attempt to craft and manipulate their public, and sometimes even their private image. It's a stark reminder, isn't it? To question the curated narrative, even when it seems to start innocently, presented with all the trappings of a normal, loving life.
Indeed. This serves as a powerful example of what we might call a perception management playbook. It highlights how public figures, especially those with dark secrets, actively construct a favorable self-image. It's a tactic that often preys on our inherent desire, perhaps, to believe in an individual's good intentions or normal upbringing. It shows how deeply intertwined the public persona can be with a fabricated private reality, and it lays the groundwork for how a sophisticated network of influence and deceit can operate.
Okay, so as the pages continue to turn in this book, the facade of normalcy that Epstein and Maxwell so carefully constructed, well, it begins to crack. And the high society sleaze, as you called it, starts to seep through. And our first stop in this high-profile cesspool brings us to none other than Donald J. Trump, whose inclusion in this book is, frankly, explosive.
It really is. The entry in question is a letter, purportedly from Donald J. Trump, which he has vehemently denied sending. He's branded it as fake. This entry, however, it appears to be a startling piece of, well, vulgar artistry, for lack of a better term. It features words inscribed inside the drawn outline of a nude woman, her curves sketched in these crude lines that just scream provocation. And sealing this bizarre letter, Donald J. Trump's very recognizable signature is scrawled across the woman's waist, deliberately evoking this raw bodily exposure. This raw visual statement immediately signals a departure from the family-friendly beginning, doesn't it? And points to a shared, unspoken understanding of a very different kind of gift within Epstein's orbit.
Wow. And the letter itself, it opens with a very theatrical line, a voiceover instruction, meaning you're supposed to read this letter from Donald Trump's perspective and from Epstein's. It then spirals into this presumably fictitious dialogue between Donald and Jeffrey, where they muse on sharing certain things in common, using these cryptic euphemisms that just reek of shared vices, unspoken and frankly quite filthy. The letter reads, "Voiceover, there must be more to life than having everything, Donald. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is, Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common. Jeffrey, yes, we do. Come to think of it, Donald. Enigmas never age, have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me last time I saw you. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." Okay, so when Trump talks about enigmas and wonderful secrets with Epstein, what specific kind of shared understanding are we really talking about here? Is this just vague high society banter, or does the context of this book suggest something far, far more sinister?
Well, given the revelations we now have, these enigmas and wonderful secrets strongly imply, I think, knowledge of Epstein's illicit activities and a shared understanding of a dark, private world. It's not just polite banter, it feels like a coded language hinting at complicity. Now, Trump, immediately after this letter surfaced, fired back with a swift and aggressive public deflection. He branded the letter fake and stated, quote, "These are not my words, not the way I talk, also I don't draw pictures."
Right, I remember that denial about drawing pictures.
Yes, but that claim, it was quickly refuted when reports emerged that people had actually found pictures Donald Trump had drawn around that exact same time period, specifically of the New York skyline, which were subsequently auctioned off. His White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, she doubled down on these denials, saying, "It's very clear President Trump did not draw this picture and he did not sign it. President Trump's legal team will continue to aggressively pursue litigation." So this swift and aggressive denial, even against verifiable evidence, it's a key element of the narrative unfolding here.
And there's more, isn't there? Tethered to the letter is this partially redacted image of Epstein clutching an oversized check. If you look closely at the photo, the massive check seems to be signed DJ Trump, or maybe Donald John Trump. And below the photo, there's a handwritten note that gloats verbatim. Jeffrey showing early talents with money and women's cells fully depreciated, redacted to Donald Trump for $22,500.
That redaction is key.
It is. The redaction on this document, of course, it veils what the item Epstein allegedly sold to Trump actually was. However, online discourse and reporting suggests that the check is potentially describing the sale of a woman from Epstein to Trump. Not like an official sale, obviously, but more of something that would have been written down on the check as a dark, twisted joke. A joke that, if true, would look incredibly wrong if viewed through today's lens, knowing what we now know. Epstein's grin just dominates that photo, brandishing the massive prop check like it's some kind of trophy of transactional sleaze. It truly makes you wonder what kind of joke was considered acceptable in their circle, especially at Mar-a-Lago, where this photo was allegedly taken.
Well, this aggressive denial and strategic deflection, it connects deeply to Trump's past relationship with the late Roy Cohn, who, according to various reports, was one of the architects of sexual blackmail, or at least mastered its use. Cohn famously taught Trump a critical strategy, deny everything, as a core tactic to avoid accountability and maintain control of all narratives. This lesson reportedly emerged during the 1970s when Trump, facing a race discrimination lawsuit from the U.S. Department of Justice alongside his father, hired Cohn as his lawyer. Cohn advised Trump to never admit guilt, even when the evidence was strong, and instead to counterattack aggressively.
That ain't the classic Cohn playbook.
Exactly. So, for instance, despite employee confessions of discriminatory practices, Trump, following Cohn's guidance, denied all allegations and even fired off a countersuit against the government for $100 million. Cohn's philosophy was basically that admitting wrongdoing was a sign of weakness, and he encouraged Donald Trump to just deny everything and fight, unquote. So this historical context provides a critical lens for understanding Trump's reaction to the book's revelations. It feels like a learned behavior, doesn't it? A consistent methodology applied throughout his business and political career. And the photo of the check and the caption, allegedly taken at Mar-a-Lago, it further solidifies the compelling evidence and makes the repeated denials all the more suspect, I think.
Yeah, Trump's spectral presence certainly haunts these pages, but the international rot, it spreads even wider. Next, we turn to a birthday note from Lord Peter Mandelson, who, at the time of the book's surfacing, was the current United Kingdom ambassador to the United States, a very significant diplomatic position.
That's right. And Lord Peter Mandelson is already a somewhat controversial figure. In the United Kingdom, he's earned himself the notorious nickname, the Prince of Darkness. He received this nickname back in 1985 when the Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock appointed him as the party's Director of Communications in the UK, making him one of the first people in Britain to whom the term spin doctor was applied. Now, a spin doctor is essentially an expert in public relations who deliberately provides biased interpretations of events, often using disingenuous or manipulative tactics to control a narrative. So, Lord Peter Mandelson, a master of shaping public perception, well, he seems like just the kind of person Epstein would have liked to keep in his inner circle. His public persona already raises questions about the nature of his associations and how information is managed and controlled.
And this isn't the first time Lord Peter Mandelson has been linked to Epstein, is it? For example, back in 2019, the UK's Channel 4 aired an episode of their show Dispatches, in which a source close to Epstein claimed that Mandelson, while serving as a UK cabinet minister, made a phone call to Epstein in order to set up a meeting with him and Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan.
That connection was reported.
And then in June of 2023, an internal JP Morgan report from 2019 filed to a New York court found that Jeffrey Epstein appeared to maintain a particularly close relationship with Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and Lord Peter Mandelson, a senior member of the British government. However, that relationship was never fully explored by investigators or the press. So this isn't his first dance with Epstein's shadow, as they say.
No, it isn't. And in stark contrast to these revelations, in February 2025, after being appointed the United Kingdom's ambassador to the U.S., when he was asked about his relationship with Epstein by the Financial Times, Lord Peter Mandelson said, and I quote, "I regret ever meeting him or being introduced to him by his partner Ghislaine Maxwell. I regret even more the hurt he caused to many young women. I'm not going to go into this. It's an FT obsession. And frankly, you can all F off."
Wow, strong words.
Very strong. His vehement public dismissal is directly contradicted by the depth of his contribution to this book. One would think, hearing that quote, that Lord Mandelson was barely introduced to Epstein and had no real relationship with him. The birthday book, however, seems to show their relationship in a completely different light.
Oh, it absolutely does. In the pages submitted by Lord Peter Mandelson to Ghislaine Maxwell for Epstein's book, Mandelson wrote a number of notes and included several photos. In his writings, he explicitly dubbed Epstein my best pal, essentially his best friend. He also talks in his submitted pages about how Epstein, a man they call mysterious, randomly parachuted in and out of his life. Mandelson even talks about how he would sit when Epstein was gone, just waiting for him to return back into his life. This entry further reminisces about Mandelson and Epstein's first encounter. It paints a picture of a much more intimate, almost dependent relationship than Mandelson has ever cared to admit publicly. What does this level of intimacy imply about their shared knowledge or activities?
Well, it certainly paints a picture of a much deeper, more personal connection than any casual acquaintance would share. And then it kind of slithers into this deeply suggestive illusion. According to Mandelson's writings, Epstein would often leave one alone with some interesting friends to entertain. Now, the ambiguity of the phrase interesting friends is paired with an accompanying image of two women whose faces are obscured or redacted, their forms hinting at forbidden company without any further information. It should be noted that one of the interesting friends Lord Peter Mandelson is pictured with appears to be a very young, scantily clad woman in a bikini.
Okay, that detail is a signal.
It is. And the note from Lord Peter Mandelson teases further, reminiscing about the times that Epstein, quote, taking you by surprise in one of his glorious homes he likes to share with his friends, yum yum. Oh, the parenthetical yum yum, that's actually written down in the note. It carries this sensual suggestion of indulgence, hinting at shared illicit activities. The ambiguity of interesting friends, coupled with explicit imagery, and that phrase yum yum, it pulses with a sense of shared debauchery, revealing a coded language of their shared activities, suggesting a far more nefarious understanding between them.
In this segment of Mandelson's submission, it includes multiple photos. One of a tropical island, another of Mandelson staring out of a window at the ocean, a third picture of Epstein and Mandelson sitting together laughing, with a fourth unspecified photo rounding out the message. This whole collage of images and suggestive text, especially with the yum yum and the allusion to interesting friends alongside images of women with redacted faces, it clearly makes Lord Mandelson out to be a much closer friend of Epstein's than he's ever admitted to publicly.
Hmm. Now, pivoting to American royalty on another page of the birthday book, we find a message seemingly signed by former President Bill Clinton. This entry is notably text only. No photos, no drawings, no numbers. Just pure, unadulterated admiration, it seems. The full, sort of fawning text of Clinton's letter to Epstein states, and I quote, "It's reassuring, isn't it, to have lasted as long across all the years of learning and knowing, and also to have your childlike curiosity, the drive to make a difference, and the solace of friends." This scribbled note from Clinton lauds Epstein's endurance, his intellect, camaraderie, framing him as some sort of ageless force of influence and solace. This level of praise, devoid of any visual distraction, it just glosses over the gathering storm around Epstein at the time, emphasizing a perceived intellectual and personal bond. A public display of esteem despite the whispers and growing concerns about Epstein's activities.
So why does all this matter to you, the listener? Well, these entries reveal how powerful individuals can be drawn into and maybe even complicit in problematic circles. The use of coded language, the quick denials, the public versus private narratives. These are all fascinating lessons in how influence works and how certain truths are concealed or reframed, often with aggressive deflection tactics.
It really underscores how a carefully constructed social and political network can provide a cloak of impunity. When individuals in positions of power offer such unreserved praise or engage in this kind of coded communication, it begs the question, doesn't it? What unspoken agreements or shared knowledge existed within these elite circles? It exposes the sophisticated mechanisms by which powerful individuals operate, managing their public image while engaging in private behaviors that might be far from what they publicly project. And this isn't just about individual moral failing, I think, but about the systemic vulnerabilities that allow such networks to flourish.
Okay, moving deeper into this rabbit hole towards the book's tail end, we get to the assisting section. And here, the entries just erupt in this breathless excess, cataloging these wild escapades that one assistant apparently had since being introduced to Epstein. It's incredibly telling about the kind of access and lifestyle Epstein afforded those in his direct employ, almost like an inducement, maybe?
It certainly reads that way. This unsigned entry from what is assumed to be one of Jeffrey Epstein's personal assistants, their identity is never shared, begins by stating, and I quote, "Before Jeffrey, I was a 22-year-old divorcee working as a hostess in a hotel restaurant." This immediately establishes the stark contrast, right? Portraying a lost, unglamorous past. But then on the second page, she writes about her life after Jeffrey, transforming into what she frames as the Cinderella-like story. The list of countries she's traveled to is just extensive. Paris, London, Milan, Copenhagen, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Stockholm, China, Singapore, Brunei, Bangkok, Bali, Ghana, Nigeria, Mozambique, Rwanda, South Africa, Morocco, Ireland, St. Tropez, Florida, St. Bart's, St. Thomas, St. John, New Mexico, Moscow, St. Petersburg, Aspen, and more. It goes on.
Wow, that's quite a list.
It is. And she goes on to list the high-profile individuals she met. Prince Andrew, President Clinton, the Sultan of Brunei, Donald Trump, Antonio Vargas, Naomi Campbell, Stephanie Seymour, Peter Brandt, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Diana Ross, Michael Jackson. Brilliant scientists, lawyers, and businessmen. This is presented as this rags-to-riches transformation, directly attributable to Epstein's connections and patronage, highlighting the incredible access he could grant.
And the list of experiences this assistant recounts is truly astounding. Flying on the Concorde, skydiving, taking flying lessons, scuba diving, parasailing, attending a Victoria's Secret fashion show, seeing the private quarters of Buckingham Palace, and even, get this, claiming to have sat on the Queen of England's throne. That's an audacious level of access. What does that particular detail tell us about the boundaries Epstein was apparently able to breach and how casually it was boasted about?
Well, the audacity of claiming to sit on the Queen's throne, it speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the utter disregard for protocol and the almost limitless access Epstein's network provided. The feverish tone of the entry, with its detailed cataloging of exclusive experiences and high-profile contacts, it subtly suggests some sort of tacit complicity, perhaps, in Epstein's dark realm. While specific dates or precise locations beyond Buckingham Palace are often left vague in her account, the implications are heavy, the sheer volume of named individuals and exclusive experiences suggests a profound immersion in Epstein's world, a world where boundaries of power, privilege, and access were seemingly non-existent, and where the line between legitimate experience and illicit activity became increasingly blurred, perhaps even intentionally so. It's a narrative of personal gain and access through a figure who was, even then, deeply problematic.
And beyond the named contributors, some of the most unsettling revelations come from these scattered, unattributed pages within the book, containing deeply disturbing remarks and photographs. It seems even anonymous sources within the book felt compelled to share these unsettling details, adding to the layers of hidden knowledge.
Yes, one particularly disturbing unsigned letter, it's graphically designed with considerable effort, is titled Jizzies. That's Jizzys. It contains truly unsettling passages. It reads, and I quote, Ghislaine came to the Palm Beach Horse Show looking for a collection of breast photos, a compilation, of course, for you.
Wow. Explicitly stating Ghislaine's role.
Explicitly. It then directly recounts, I came to see you some months later. You told me to take off my top with the usual Epstein smile. You looked at my breasts and said, I was right. Memory served you correctly. The beauty mark was on the right breast. This letter explicitly details Ghislaine's role in collecting a breast gallery for Epstein and a woman being instructed to expose herself, solidifying a pattern of objectification and sexual exploitation that was not only known but actively facilitated.
And the closing line of that disturbing entry is chilling. One quotable memory to a true friend with whom I have shared many complicities. The use of the word complicities here is absolutely chilling, directly implying shared wrongdoing and knowledge, a deep and troubling involvement in Epstein's activities.
Absolutely. And adding to these anonymous revelations, another unattributed poem included in the book states that Epstein would outrage the public decency on any occasion using terms rude, crude, and lewd and politically incorrect, end quote. The poem concludes with an even more damning line. Jeffrey, at half a century with credentials plenipotentiary, though up to no good whenever he could, has avoided the penitentiary. This strongly suggests the author knew what Epstein was up to and was maybe shocked he avoided the pen, indicating widespread awareness of his illegal or illicit activities even then, well before his public downfall. This poem serves as a kind of internal prophecy, highlighting a deep-seated knowledge within his circle of Epstein's illicit behavior and a prevailing belief at the time in his ability to evade justice.
Then there's another contributor, whose name has been redacted, who provides a letter detailing how Yes, a woman met Epstein way back in the summer of 1985. This entry offers a first-hand account of Epstein's disturbing behavior right from the very beginning of a relationship.
She shares several troubling memories, including Epstein asking her if she was a virgin the very first time that they were left alone together.
Okay.
She also recounts an instance during a shopping trip at Bloomingdale's where he proceeded to throw me down on the floor and started kissing and tickling me all over. End quote. These accounts paint a clear picture of highly inappropriate and aggressive behavior, suggesting a pattern of boundary crossing from early encounters, a deeply disturbing indication of his predatory nature even back then.
And the included photos, they're edited to mask her identity, but they're equally unsettling. One shows her in underwear while looking in a wardrobe, and it's captioned, "Visiting you down in Palm Beach can't get a second of privacy with you and a camera around. Haha." The reference to a camera. Knowing what we now know about Epstein's properties being rigged with security cameras and blackmail recording equipment, that is absolutely disturbing. It transforms what might seem like a lighthearted comment into this sinister implication of surveillance and control.
And throughout the birthday book, there are also numerous, literally hundreds, of photos of women, some stark naked, others in skimpy bikinis. Though their identities have been partially or fully redacted for the release of the files, what's particularly striking is that no context was given to any of these images. We don't know who these women were, why they were in Epstein and Maxwell's company, or even how old they might have been at the time. These visuals, they intersperse the assistants' and girlfriends' messages, bodies displayed in some form of voyeuristic glory. And that distinction between girlfriends and girlfriends feels crucial here, implying different shades of conquest, or perhaps even groomed victims. One photo caps a woman's message with a visually explicit scene, an unidentified man shoving his hand on the back of a woman's jeans in this graphic, intimate gesture. It's described as unfiltered obscenity. The inclusion of such explicit and frankly violent imagery submitted by an assistant strongly suggests that those in his immediate employ were not only aware but actively complicit, or at least desensitized to his darkest proclivities, operating within a deeply corrupted environment.
And it's not just women, right? The book also contains numerous shots of men in tight bathing suits, many of these pictures starring Epstein himself, described as embodying oiled machismo. This further underlines the deeply sexualized nature of the entire collection and Epstein's self-perception within it. Okay, this section is profoundly unsettling, but it gives you, the listener, an unparalleled look behind the curtain. It shows the incredible lengths Epstein went to both reward and implicate those around him. It also forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth about how many people witnessed, facilitated or even participated in his activities, willingly or perhaps unwillingly. Paints a picture of a world where moral boundaries were not just blurred, but actively obliterated.
Absolutely. The content here moves beyond mere suggestion to direct evidence of coercion, exploitation, and objectification. It challenges us to consider the psychology of complicity, the allure of privilege, and the systemic failures that allowed such egregious behavior to persist unchecked for so long. It highlights how a culture of secrecy, enabled by power and money, can normalize the horrific, leading to a chilling acceptance among an inner circle.
Right, now let's pivot to the colleague's corner, as the sources call it, where the lines between professional sycophancy sometimes merged alarmingly with overt sexual innuendo. What did these diverse figures gain from this association? And what did their contributions collectively reveal about the transactional nature of their relationships and the moral compromises made within Epstein's orbit?
Well, we begin with a letter from the late Bear Stearns CEO, Alan A. Greenberg. He delivers what you might call professional sycophancy, but mostly without the explicit sexual undertones seen elsewhere. His message states, and I quote, "Working with Jeffrey has been a pleasure, and watching his meteoric success has given me many vicarious thrills. This entry, when you read it in full, it toasts Epstein's finance wizardry, with vicarious thrills being a relatively tame echo of the book's baser ecstasies. There's no explicit innuendo or images here, just a kind of mutual glory found in money-making, which, in a weird way, serves as a brief break from the rest of the unsettling content."
Okay, so purely financial connection there, emphasizing money and power. But then we move from the world of finance to fashion, with Les Wexner, the owner of the limited and Victoria's Secret, identified by sources as one of the men who, according to many, helped create the Epstein enigma himself. His letter contains a short, cryptic message. "Dear Jeffrey, I wanted to get you what you want, so here it is." And chillingly, directly underneath this message is a drawing of what appears to be a woman's breasts. So you have more undeniable innuendo from another close friend, directly linking a powerful figure in children's retail and lingerie to Epstein's sexual obsessions and desires.
And Ghislaine Maxwell herself, she also contributed further to the birthday book later on, submitting her own letter with a collage of photos and captions. These included pictures of Epstein's private jets and properties, as well as a photo of Epstein hugging a topless woman on a boat. Another page signed by Ghislaine Maxwell features a topless photograph of her in a pool with Epstein. Maxwell's repeated contributions, particularly these revealing images, they just reinforce her central role, not just as a collaborator, but as an active participant in documenting and perhaps even facilitating Epstein's lifestyle and pervasive sexual proclivities.
Even the fashion designer Vera Wang appears in the book. She joked in her letter about putting Epstein on the TV show The Bachelor and suggested that the two of them should go on a shopping trip. Also included with Vera Wang's letters are photos of a grand piano and what looks to be a coffee drink. And the pages of her letters are lined with what appear to be star stickers. Even in what seems to be a more innocent entry compared to others, we still see the casual flirtation and the high-flying lifestyle associated with Epstein, suggesting a comfortable familiarity within elite circles that could easily mask darker undercurrents.
And then we have Leon Black, the co-founder of Apollo Global Management, an American asset management firm that, as of 2025, had over $840 billion worth of assets under management. A huge figure. His submission included a handwritten poem with a rhyme scheme that seemed to flow with some sort of cryptic meaning that's really difficult to decipher. It was signed, however, "Love and Kisses Leon." The presence of such a high-caliber financial figure offering a cryptic message of love and kisses further highlights the breadth and depth of Epstein's influential network, showing how his orbit extended into the highest echelons of global finance.
Okay, here's where the connections get really bizarre. Tying respected institutions and intellectual figures to Epstein's world. It's truly surprising and unsettling how deeply his influence permeated.
Indeed. We have Nathan Myhrvold, the billionaire and former executive with Microsoft. In his letter to Epstein, Nathan stated that he was sending photos from a recent trip to Africa, claiming they were more appropriate than anything I could put in words. However, the photos he included were all of animals mating. A very disturbing selection, quite graphic in nature.
Animals mating, that's odd.
Very odd. And his spokeswoman's later, somewhat humorous denial, claiming he's simply a wildlife photographer who regularly shares photos of and writes about animal behavior, is presented as this stark, almost laughable contradiction to the graphic nature of the images themselves. It feels like an attempt to normalize the abnormal or perhaps just a very weak excuse.
Then there's Jean-Luc Brunel, a modeling agency runner who was later accused of trafficking and died suspiciously in prison in France before his trial, just like Epstein did. In his letter to Epstein, he chillingly states that 10 is the most beautiful number, and in the same letter, lists Epstein and himself alongside Pythagoras, Euclid, and Archimedes, three famous Greek mathematicians. The scribbled equations, along with the chilling phrase 10 is the most beautiful number, are suggested by the source to hold some dark encoded meaning yet to be deciphered, especially given Brunel's own history. The implication, especially when considering the context of Epstein's crimes, is deeply sinister.
And perhaps one of the most profoundly bizarre entries comes from Henry Rosofsky, a respected Harvard economist and former dean. He included a short handwritten note that read, "For the man who has almost everything but never enough of these." This note accompanied a pair of color images that are labeled in the birthday book as tit print, appearing to be literal imprints of female breasts, potentially done after covering a woman's body part in some sort of paint and then pressing the breast against paper or canvas.
Literal breast imprints.
Yeah.
From a Harvard dean.
Apparently so. The implication of a respected Harvard academic sending such explicit images to Epstein is once again profoundly disturbing, highlighting the extreme moral compromises made within his elite circle and the unsettling nature of what was considered an acceptable gift in their world.
Okay, let's return briefly to politics and media, showing Epstein's enduring and manipulative influence even in these critical spheres.
Right. Here we encounter Alan Dershowitz, who famously represented Epstein in his very first criminal case back in the 2000s. His submission includes a disturbing photograph, a mock-up of a Vanity Unfair magazine cover with mock headlines all over it. Dershowitz's accompanying letter, dated December 11, 2002, states, "Dear Jeffrey, as a birthday gift to you, I managed to obtain an early version of the Vanity Unfair article. I talked them into changing the focus from you to Bill Clinton. As you will see from the enclosed excerpt, happy birthday and best regards, Alan." This letter explicitly reveals an attempt to shift negative media focus from Epstein to Bill Clinton, demonstrating the active manipulation of public perception within his inner circle and the readiness to use powerful connections for personal protection.
And the mock headlines on that doctored magazine cover are truly wild, ranging from Jeffrey Epstein, who was Jack the Ripper, was it Jeffrey Epstein, to Al-Qaeda in South America, financed by Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein stole my heart. Bring it on, Jeffrey. Consume me, Jeffrey. Intoxicate me, Jeffrey. Just bizarre. On another page included with Dershowitz's submission, it asks, who was that man with Epstein? Inquiring minds are asking, who was that man with Epstein? And details why Vanity Unfair was determined to get to the bottom of this mystery man, an obscure former politician from Hope, Arkansas, clearly referring to Bill Clinton. This entire submission points to a clear awareness of Epstein's close relationship with Clinton and a willingness to use it as a deflection shield, showcasing the dark arts of public relations, really.
And adding to the political connections, we have George Mitchell, a former United States senator and diplomat. He submitted a letter for Epstein's birthday book. In his letter, Mitchell calls Epstein a good friend and praises his full, exciting, and fantastically varied life. This further reinforces the long-standing, high-profile political connections Epstein cultivated across both sides of the aisle, demonstrating the widespread acceptance and admiration he enjoyed within certain elite circles.
We also find a letter from Mort Zuckerman, who was then an owner of the New York Daily News. He joked in his letter about having searched his own newspaper, amongst others, for information about Epstein, and jokingly discovered Epstein was born in Liechtenstein and had a wife and 3 children there. Included with this letter are also some disturbing, bizarre photographs that appear for some unspecified reason to show President George W. Bush without a face, along with another man without a face. The meanings of these photos are not explained, adding to the strange and unsettling nature of this entire book. The cryptic imagery is truly unsettling.
And finally, one of the pages of the released birthday book shows a card attributed to a man named Joel Poshow, reportedly of Atlantic Realty Trust, a very wealthy group, and also reportedly a longtime member of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. The card that Joel submitted to Epstein's birthday book disturbingly shows illustrations of a birthday cake, birthday balloons, a large airplane, and some scantily clad women. This imagery, combining an airplane and scantily clad women, is seen by the source as perfectly summing up Epstein and his trafficking operations, strongly implying an explicit understanding of his illicit activities within his social circle. The deliberate juxtaposition of these elements is incredibly telling.
So what's the takeaway here for you? The depth and breadth of Epstein connections across seemingly disparate fields, finance, fashion, academia, politics, media, it's absolutely staggering. It reveals a world where influence, power, and illicit desires intertwined, often publicly but in coded ways, and where individuals actively protected and enabled each other. It's a chilling testament to how far privilege can stretch.
Exactly. This section offers a stark illustration of how a charismatic or powerful figure can exert influence across various sectors, creating this web of complicity that insidiously permeates society. The rain of contributions, from subtle innuendo to explicit imagery, indicates a shared understanding, a subculture where such exchanges were somehow normalized. It exposes the corruption of not just one individual, but an entire network that facilitated and, in many cases, celebrated his dark endeavors. This pervasive normalization of the illicit is one of the most profound and disturbing revelations from the book.
Okay, now we arrive at what is described as the most disturbing sketch in the entire birthday book, from an unknown author and artist. This one truly hits hard. It's described as the most striking, the clearest, the most disturbing image of them all. A chilling visual narrative of Epstein's dark trajectory that leaves very little to the imagination.
It's incredibly chilling. This drawing, it depicts Jeffrey Epstein in the year 1983 as he approaches a group of what clearly are meant to be young girls, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 years old. Handing them a lollipop, it's literally cartoonish, emphasizing their youth and vulnerability. Then, on the same page, the drawing jumps 2 decades into the future, into the year 2003. And it shows Epstein receiving a massage from 4 scantily clad young women, a few of whom appear to be wearing no tops. This deliberate juxtaposition, presenting the progression from seemingly innocent interaction to explicit exploitation, serves as a clear, undeniable, and frankly horrifying depiction of grooming.
And here's the most grotesque detail, according to the reporting. On one of the girl's butt cheeks, we can clearly see the letters J.E. for Jeffrey Epstein, which appear to have been tattooed on in the image like some sort of sick cattle brand. The imagery of branding, of possession, is horrifying and speaks volumes about the level of depravity suggested by this drawing, suggesting ownership and dehumanization.
Absolutely. This sketch, therefore, is not just illustrative, it's a stark, almost instructional depiction of his modus operandi and the tragic reality of his victims.
Yeah.
It connects directly to Epstein's known methods, where he was targeting his victims while he was getting these massages. And that was part of the trafficking operation. He would get these victims, force them to perform these sexual massages on clients. The reporting also mentions that while it was mostly women, some young boys were involved as well, with one report even citing a 6 or 8-year-old boy. The ability for someone within Epstein's circle to graphically depict such a trajectory, from seduction to exploitation and branding, suggests a profound lack of moral compass and a chilling acceptance of these activities within that environment.
This image, more than any other perhaps, lays bare the true nature of Epstein's crimes and the insidious process of grooming. It's a gut-wrenching aha moment that forces you to confront the scale and horror of what was happening behind the scenes, and how casually it was documented by those in his circle.
Precisely. The ability for someone within Epstein's circle to graphically depict such a trajectory, from seemingly innocent seduction to explicit exploitation and branding, it suggests a profound lack of moral compass and a chilling acceptance of these activities. It's a visual testament to the horrifying truth that was unfolding within his inner sanctum, further underscoring the collective blindness or complicity of those around him. This one drawing encapsulates the entire deeply disturbing narrative of Epstein's criminal enterprise.
So after this deep dive, what are the overarching conclusions we can really draw from Epstein's birthday book? It's a truly sickening document, isn't it? But one that offers incredible insights into the dark underbelly of power.
Well, firstly, the book constantly reiterates this theme of Epstein as a mysterious man, an enigma even to his closest friends. Multiple people verbally stated that he was mysterious, an enigma of sorts. Now, this constant portrayal suggests possible reasons for this perception, maybe whispers of his intelligence connections, the opaque and often questionable sources of his immense wealth, or the child trafficking itself. This constant portrayal as mysterious suggests that his inner circle understood he operated outside conventional norms, with hidden depths and perhaps illicit endeavors that were simply not to be discussed openly.
Right. And secondly, and perhaps more damningly, the book unequivocally emphasizes Epstein's intimate connections to an extraordinarily powerful and diverse network. We're talking about figures like the Sultan of Brunei, influential politicians in the United Kingdom, current, former, and even future U.S. presidents, along with titans of finance, fashion, science, and art. This book is, in essence, a Rolodex of power, isn't it? Illustrating just how deeply intertwined Epstein was with the global elite. Not just socially, but in ways that suggest a mutual understanding and interaction, however dark that might have been.
But the most significant takeaway, I think, the one that truly sticks out after analyzing this entire document, is the fact that almost all of the letters or drawings or inclusions in the birthday book, they have some sort of weird sexual element to them. This is not a subtle hint, it's pervasive. We see drawings of breasts, graphic depictions of nude female forms, literal tit imprints, disturbing drawings of children being groomed, and depictions of Epstein receiving massages from naked women. There are mentions of mysterious and entertaining friends and that deeply unsettling yum yum, along with direct acknowledgments of shared many complicities.
And the evidence just continues to pile up, doesn't it? The book contains hundreds, maybe even thousands, of photos of scantily clad or fully naked women, with no context given for their age or relation to Epstein. There are countless discussions of great memories and parties and island excursions and repeated references to secrets that Epstein and whoever is writing him share. We've heard accounts of women being pushed down on the ground and kissed or asked if they were a virgin on their very first encounter, and disturbingly, references to being filmed when they're vulnerable. The sheer volume and explicitness of these entries paint an undeniable picture. Epstein was a man obsessed with sex, extremely young women, and massages, and his friends not only knew it, but some even participated in documenting and implicitly condoning it.
In my opinion, the central theory for why the book looks this way, why it contains such brazen and disturbing content, is that at the time, Epstein was right in the middle of his child trafficking operation, and the people associated with him believed he would never be caught. They likely assumed he had some sort of governmental or intelligence agency protection, and crucially, all the people that wrote into the book assumed that no one would ever see this book or the contents found within it. This belief in impunity, in absolute secrecy, allowed for an astonishing level of frankness, perhaps, in their contributions.
This book, ultimately, paints an incredibly damning image not only of Epstein, but also of all of his friends, doesn't it? It suggests that those in his circles not only knew about his obsessions and dark desires, but knew them so well that they actually included coded messages and sometimes direct, very obvious messages about these desires and proclivities in their birthday wishes. They knew what was really going on, or at least had a very strong clue about it, and they were all intent on keeping this mysterious secret with them and taking it to their grave. A secret that has now, against all their apparent expectations, been brutally exposed. So for you, the listener, this isn't just a collection of sordid details, it's a profound sociological document. It forces us to ask critical questions about power, accountability, and the dark underbelly of elite circles. How much do people ignore or even actively enable when money and influence are on the table, and the powerful are seemingly beyond reproach?
Exactly. This deep dive into Epstein's birthday book reveals a chilling truth: that systemic issues of power, privilege, and secrecy allowed horrific crimes to fester for years, often in plain sight of many powerful individuals. It challenges us to critically examine the relationships between the powerful, the role of complicity, and the insidious nature of information control. This is not just about one man, but about the network that sustained him, creating a disturbing ecosystem of exploitation that for far too long remained hidden in plain sight. #HadOutro.
Well, we've journeyed through a truly unsettling collection, haven't we? A twisted labor of love that inadvertently exposes the raw, unvarnished truth about Jeffrey Epstein and his powerful, complicit network. From Ghislaine Maxwell's affectionate prologue to that utterly grotesque grooming sketch and the cryptic, often explicit messages from some of the world's most influential figures, this book is a chilling testament to a hidden world.
It really is. And considering the brazenness of these entries and the apparent belief among the contributors that this book would remain a private secret, it raises a crucial question for all of us, I think. What other birthday books or hidden archives of the powerful exist out there, documenting unspoken complicities and unsettling truths, simply awaiting their moment to be exposed?
A truly powerful thought to leave you with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and above all, stay informed. We'll be back soon with another deep dive.